Alright, this is how you do a Kakuro puzzle. It's similar to Sudoku and crossword puzzles because it uses numbers and it uses the idea of a crossword puzzle with ups, downs, and then left and rights or crosses. So here's what we need to know. If you look, the numbers tell you how many the digits add up to, and you can't use 0 and you can only use single digits. So for example, there's a 3 over here, if you can see where I circled, which means that there has to be a 1 or a 2 in this spot, and a 1 or a 2 in this spot, because you can't use 0, and you can't use any number more than once anyways, in a column or row, consecutively or within a group. So we've got a 1 and a 2 there. We don't know which one's which yet, so I'll just put that in green. When I know it, I'll put it in black. Alright, and then we've got an 8 going across, so that doesn't really help us. So I'm going to go around until I find where I can start. Alright, so I noticed over here there's a 4. Let me do it with the green. So that means it can't be a 2 and a 2, so it has to be a 1 and a 3, or a 1 and a 3 here. But then over here we have an 11, and an 11 can't be made with a 1, because you can't put a 10 in this spot. It has to be a single digit. So I know that this has to be a 3, and I know then that 3 plus 8 gives me 11. So I've got my first section done. That gives me a 1 over here, and then I can continue from there. So if this is 13 up here, then 8 plus 5 is 13, so it's going to be a 1, 2, 3, or 4 that goes here. That's not right. A 1 or a 5, a 2 or a 3. So it's a 1, 2, 3, or 5 that goes here. A 4 can't go there. So if it's a 1, then the other one's a 4. If it's a 2, then the other one's a 3. Since we've already got a 1 right here, then that means that this can't be a 1. So we'll get rid of that. And that means that this can't be a 5. I'm going to look over here. I'm going to check out this one. We've got a 5 over here. So that's going to be a 1 and a 4, or a 2 and a 3, or the opposite. So now that I look and I see this over here, this 13, if this was a 3, 2, or 1, it wouldn't work. So this one has to be a 4 right here in order to make this a 9. And then that makes this one a 1. And since this number over here is a 17, 17 minus 1 is 16. And you can't do 8 and 8, so you have to have 9 and 7. And we used a 9 already on one of those spots, so we have to use the 9 here and the 7 here. Now that we've used the 9 in this row and the 1 in this row, we want to make 19 over here. So we subtract the 10, which gives us 9. And so if we wanted to do 9 left over, and we used a 1, that would... Hold on. I can't do that yet, but I can go over to... Oopsie. Over to here and notice that there's a 15 with 2 squares. We can't do a 10, so it has to be a 9, 8, 7 kind of situation. But we have a 9 right here, so that really limits us too. We can't do an 8, 1, and 1 going down for the 9, so it has to be a 7 or less in this spot. So 7 or 6 or 5 or well, it can't be a 5, so 7 or 6 would be the only possibilities for this spot. And as I think about that, it can't be a 7, it has to be a 6. So if this is a 6, that would leave us with a 1 and a 2 here and here. 1, 2, 1, 2. I'll have to decide which one is which. And since I've used a 9 to get 15, I have to use a 9, I'm sorry, since I used a 6, I have to use a 9 to get my 15. So now I'm going to go look over here. There's a 24 here, and we've already got 16 showing. So that leaves us with 8 between 2 spots. So you can't use a 7 and a 1 because we've already used the 7. So that eliminates the possibility of this 1 being used, which means it eliminates the 4 over here. So we now know that those are going to be 2s and 3s there. So if this is a 2 or a 3, and we need 8, then this has to be a 5 or a 6 over here. And because up here we have a 9 and a 1 showing, that means 10, so there's 9 left. If we use a 2, then that means that this has to be a 7. And if we use a 3, then that means that this has to be a 6. So if I look up here and I see this 8, I've used up either a 1 or a 2, so that makes it a 6 or a 7 that has to go here. And if I have a 5 or a 6 and a 6 or a 7, let's pause it. That means then that I have to have an 8 or a 9 here, because if I do my 7 plus my 6, that's 13, plus an 8 would make 21. So the highest I could go over here is 7 and 6, so the lowest I'd go here was an 8. And then the lowest I could go is a 6 and a 5, make 11. It won't be a 6 and a 5 because that would mean I'd need a 10 in this spot here, and you can't have a 10, you can only have single digits, so 9's the highest that I would go. Now I look at this 19, and if I have a 9 and a 2, that would be 11, which would leave an 8 over here. The lowest I could go is an 8 and a 1, which would be 9, so I'd need a 10 over here. I can't have that. So the only choices are 8 and 9 right here. Alright, so I'm a little stumped, so I'm going to go over to here and here. If I need a 9 over here, then I could put an 8 here. I can't put a 9 there because that wouldn't leave space for this spot. So I could put an 8. Oh, but I can't because 16 won't allow me to put 2 8s. So I could put a 7 here, which would mean a 2 here. I could put I can't put a 6 here. That has to be 7 and 2 because this 7 makes this a 9. And there's no other way to do that. And this 2 makes this a 5. Now that I've used a 9 in this column, that makes this an 8 because it could only be a 9 or an 8. The 8, the 9, the 5 add up to 9, 18, 17, 23. Let me do that again. 14, 22. So that makes this a 4. And that column is done. And then when I look back up here at this 8 that I just put in, take 19 minus 8 and you get 11. The only combination here that can get me 11 is this 9 and this 2. And when I use the 2 there, that makes this a 1. And when I use that 1, that makes this a 7 to get 8. And then when I add 9 and 7, I get 16. I want 21, so that makes this a 5. And then when I add up 16 and 5 is 21, that makes this a 3. And then the 3 plus the 8's 11, that makes this a 2. And then the 12 makes this a 7. And that was a good domino effect that got me a whole bunch of answers. Now I've got to look at this 20. 9 and 7 makes 16, so that's 4 left over. It can't be 2 and 2, so it has to be 1 and 3 or 1 and 3. So as I look at this 7, you can't have 1 and 1, but you could have 1 and 3 or 1 and 2, and that would leave you with a 4 if you did 1 and 2. A 1 and 3 would leave you with a 3, which can't work. 1 and 3 make 4. So it looks as though it has to be a 4 there, but let's check the 2 and the 3. 2 and 3 make 5, that would be a 2 over there. That won't work. So if I make this, and let's see if I have to erase myself here. If this is a 4, then that leaves this a 2 and this a 1. And I think that's right. Yeah, because if I use the 3, you'd need another 3, and I can't use that. Or if I use the 2, I would need another 2 if I use the 2 and the 3. So that's right. All right, and then that 6 and 2 make 8, so that's a 1. And then that over the next column over is 9 and 7 is 16, plus 1 is 17. That makes this a 3. So we've got 4 in that row now. That leaves 10 left over. You can't do 5 and 5, so we've got 4 and 6. You've got 3 and 7, 2 and 8. And we've already used the 1. And I can check the other way though. 2 could be here, and 8 could be here, and 3 could be here, and 7 could be here. And then this 10 can't be 5 and 5, so you got 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 4 and 6. Can't do that one though because you've used up the 4 in that column. And then the reverse, 6 and 4, 7 and 3, 8 and 2, and then 9 and 1. Now as I look at that, I see the 17, and there's only 2 digits to make 17. So if we use a 9, 9 and 8 makes 17, so we have to use a 9 and an 8. So this one couldn't have a 9, but this one could. So I'm going to make this one 8 and this one 9. And then that leaves this one a 1 because 10 is 1 and 9. And that leaves 12, 2 here. And then when we add these, 4 and 3 makes 7, so that makes this a 5. And now we're down to 9 in order to get 14. So to get 9, we could have 1 and 8, 2 and 7, 3 and 6. We could have 4 and 5. Wait, yeah, to get 9, but we've used the 5 up. And that's all we can do at the moment, because if we go the other way, well, let's see, I think I can still do 6. No, I can't do 6 because of the 7. All right. So here we've got a 13 only with 2 digits. So we could do a 9 and a 4, an 8 and a 5, a 7 and a 6. But that won't work because the 6 won't go up to this one. 7 over here messes that up. Let's see. A 5 would still mess that up. So it has to be a 4, because that leaves a 1 and a 3. I'm sorry, a 1 and a 2 in these other spots. So we'll put a 1 and a 2 here. And then this has to be a 9. Oops, I'm still on green. This has to be a 9. Since that's 7, we've used a 4. We can't have a 3 anymore over here. So that means we can't have a 6 over here. And then if we look over at this 23, we've already used up 9, so that leaves 14 left behind. We can't have a 7 and a 7, so this has to be an 8, and this has to be a 6. Then when we look at the 14, we see 8 and 5 make 13, so this has to be a 1, which makes this a 2. And I'm going to stop there because I'm about to approach 15 minutes, and I don't think they'll let me upload it at that point. So this is how you do Kakuro. I wish you luck. I hope you enjoy it.